Welcome to the Pipeline Podcast. Today is October 1st. Happy Halloween month, by the way. And we got a great story tonight. So, the last couple weeks on the channel, we have gone over Hunter Biden's laptop and how that story was suppressed by mainstream media. We also covered Russiagate, which is just another way that people inside the government, specifically like the FBI, a little bit of the CIA, pushed like shit investigations into Trump so that the mainstream media, they were kind of coordinating together to create like investigations and shit pieces against Trump during his election so he would lose the election. We've covered both of those on the channel. Today we're going to do January 6th. So let's check it out. This relates very closely to the other stories that we've covered. And the reason we're going over these three stories specifically is because this is kind of like the end of our little series on it. So again, we have the Hunter Biden laptop story that was suppressed and we were all told isn't even a true thing. We also went over the Durham report on the channel, which talked about how the FBI opened basically a biased and uncorroborated and baseless investigation on Trump's campaign. And they also lied about 17 times to get secret FISA warrants so that they can, people that worked for Trump's campaign. And all at the same time, the media is just running away with it, having a good time, even getting Pulitzer Prizes for some of their articles. The third topic that relates into all this is January 6th. So here's the story that everyone kind of knows. Biden wins the election in 2020. Trump supporters get mad and storm the Capitol, and they're going to lynch Mike Pence, and they're going to make sure that Trump stays in power. That's kind of the story. It was an insurrection. And we do have some new details that just came out the last week about this. And we're kind of going to go over tonight. It's going to take a while, but just how the whole narrative that the mainstream media has pushed about January 6th is wrong. And it was nowhere near a real insurrection. It was basically a protest that did get out of hand a little bit. We've seen this happen a lot recently with the LA riots or any protest at any ICE facilities that are getting broken into or federal agents are getting attacked. We see this on both sides, but for some reason, when people on the right do it, they're insurrectionists. When people on the left do it, they are just protesters. So anyway, we're going to start with the new information on this. That way, if you already are familiar with all the ins and outs of J6, we can start fresh with some stuff that you maybe haven't looked into or heard about yet. So this was on the 27th. Donald Trump on Truth Social says, it was just revealed that the FBI had secretly placed 274 FBI agents into the crowd prior to and during January 6th. This is different from what Director Christopher Wray stated over and over again. That's right, as it now turns out, FBI agents were at and in the J6 protest, probably acting as agitators and insurrectionists. So we're going to look into this because this is an allegation Donald Trump makes that these undercover FBI agents were acting as agitators or insurrectionists. That isn't confirmed yet, but we're going to look into it. But certainly not as law enforcement officials. I want to know who each and every one of these so-called agents are and what they were up to on that now historic day. Many great American patriots were made to pay a very big price only for the love of their country. I owe this investigation of dirty cops and crooked politicians to them. Christopher Wray, the then FBI director, has some major explaining to do. That's 2 in a row. Comey and Wray caught lying. Okay, so basically, we got to go over at the top where the FBI revealed that there was 274 secretly placed FBI agents at January 6th. We got to look into this. That's what we're going to do for the next minute or two here. So this is the document that he's referring to. It's like a leaked congressional document, I believe. I'm not exactly sure where it's coming from, but I know that it's legit. And then it basically just, at the bottom here, it has a table of all the agents that were at January 6th with the dates and the amounts, and were they agents, attorneys, or other? Or I believe IA, Internal Affairs. I'm not exactly sure what that stands for. But anyway, we see 1/6/2021, so J6, You look at the position type, agent, the event, January 6th incident, total personnel count, 274. Notes, this total includes agents that responded to the Capitol grounds as well as inside the Capitol, the pipe bombs, and the red truck that was believed to contain explosive devices, as well as CDC ADCs. I'm not in the FBI, so I'm not exactly sure what all this means, but when I read this, I think, okay, so they're just agents. Like, it doesn't say here that these agents were all secretly placed or all undercover. So we see Trump's post here where he says it's 274 secretly placed FBI agents. Based on the source that he's getting that info from, it doesn't exactly state that all of these were secretly placed, so we don't really know about that. That's still yet to develop. But anyway, let's continue. We're going to be looking into this tonight. We have a tweet from, we have an X post from Kash Patel. He says 274 FBI agents were thrown into crowd control on January 6th against FBI standards. So the FBI director is saying something similar, but a little bit different to what Trump's saying. So Kash Patel's saying that they were used for crowd control. The FBI really shouldn't be doing crowd control. And he's basically saying like, hey, the FBI should have like better standards for this, and the federal government should be able to deal with these things a little better next time, to where they're not using FBI agents as crowd control. They could be doing something a little more effective. So he says the failure was on corrupt leadership, basically saying, yeah, they needed more accountability, the leadership that dealt with this event. And then he says, thanks to agents stepping up, the truth is coming out, which kind of implies that there's going to be an update on this soon. I really hope there is. So that's kind of where we're at. Basically, there was a lot of agents, hundreds of agents, in fact, at January 6th. And people have been saying that for a while. Like, where are the FBI agents kind of pushing for the protesters to turn violent? We've seen this happen with the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot. They were basically entrapped by undercover informants. So we're going to look into this tonight. The first thing I want to bring up is, if you've ever heard of the Proud Boys. So the Proud Boys is like a right-wing militia, and people would say an extremist group. I just want to show this article here. Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio was an FBI informant. So he was an informant after his arrest in 2012. And I believe they say, during J6, he wasn't a paid informant anymore. But some people also say with these alphabet agencies, like if you're an informant once, you basically just are. But anyway, I just want to point out that like the leader of the Proud Boys could have been trying to start things to like entrap all these people. He could have been a paid informant by the FBI. He had worked for the FBI before. And I think a lot of people that went to J6 like probably weren't aware of that, and if they were, they would have acted a little differently around him, or maybe they wouldn't have listened to what the kind of things that he had to say. But it's just more circumstantial evidence that there might have been some real undercover FBI agents or informants trying to entrap these people on J6 to make Trump look bad. I mean, we've seen the FBI do this before. Okay, so next up, it's just an article from NBC News. This article from NBC News says, there it was confirmed by the Inspector General's office that there was 26 confidential human sources. Those are basically people that the FBI pays for like information. 26 of those people were in DC for January 6th, and none of them were authorized by the FBI to enter the Capitol. Basically, they're saying the FBI didn't tell these people to be there, but they were all there. So what were they there for? What were they doing? None of them were directed by the FBI to commit others to commit illegal acts on January 6th. This is according to the Inspector General. 4 FBI confidential human sources entered the Capitol. One of them testified at the Proud Boys trial. Interesting. A total of 13 confidential human sources entered the restricted area around the Capitol, and then 9 of them never entered the Capitol or restricted areas. 3 of them had been specifically tasked by FBI field offices to report on specific domestic terrorism case subjects who were possibly attending the events of J6. If you're following this, just imagine you're this FBI informant, and you're being told, oh, hey, go to January 6th if the guy that you're trying to like build arrest or find evidence on is going to J6. So it's like you go and you kind of follow him around, maybe edge him on, maybe encourage him to enter the Capitol. And he does, and he breaks the law, and so now case is over. You got him. But really, it's entrapment, and it's like if there wasn't like undercover agents or confidential human sources that were in the crowd, maybe things would have gone a little bit differently. But maybe these confidential sources and undercover FBI agents wanted something bad to happen so they could make Trump look bad. Our next source. So according to the FBI, dozens of people on its terrorist watch list were in DC for January 6th. That's according to Wikipedia. Here's the fun thing about it. So Wikipedia is saying a bunch of people on FBI's terrorist watch list were in DC for J6. The implications of this is that if the FBI was aware that all these people were in the crowd, they should have been a little more prepared, or maybe told somebody so that the National Guard could be there. But they didn't really say anything until people started asking around after the fact. Yeah, basically, if a bunch of these people are gathering in DC, they should have been more prepared, and they're claiming that, oh, we just responded to the incident. And then another fun fact about this, let's try and go to the source that Wikipedia is quoting. It takes us to a Washington Post article, and this is kind of like the annoying thing. It's behind a paywall, so you can't even read it, which kind of sucks. I have a theory that they kind of do that stuff on purpose to make it hard to find the real information because they're trying to hide this story. But make of that what you will. Next up, we have Nancy Pelosi. So we're gonna watch this video of Nancy Pelosi, and yeah, I swear to God, this is on January 6th. She's leaving the Capitol, and she doesn't think that Trump started this. She doesn't think that it was an insurrection. I mean, she might, but she doesn't really blame anyone but like herself and other leadership in the Capitol that day for not doing enough, which isn't really the story that you hear in the mainstream media. So let's check it out.
We have responsibility, Terry. We did not have any accountability for what was going on there, and we should have. This is ridiculous. You're going to ask me in the middle of the thing when they've already breached the inaugural stuff that
she's saying like people were already like breaching the Capitol, and then you want to ask me if we should bring in the National Guard? Like it's a little too late.
Should we call the Capitol Police? I mean the National Guard? Why weren't the National Guard there to begin with?
They thought that they had sufficient resources.
That is not a question of how they had. They don't know.
Also, she sounds drunk, by the way.
They clearly didn't know, and I take responsibility for not having them just prepare for more.
So yeah, she takes full responsibility for January 6th right there. I wish we saw more of that clip in the mainstream media so people would stop, blaming alt-right people for being insurrectionists when it's like, we're literally seeing like leftist terrorism right now. We're seeing illegal immigration rioters for like the first time. It's like so weird. But people want to say everyone who showed up to J6 was an insurrectionist when it looks like the Capitol should have been more prepared, according to Nancy Pelosi. She also takes responsibility. There was 274 possibly undercover agents. There was undercover FBI informants as well, who all had an agenda. They were probably there because they were working on a case against someone who was in that crowd. And next up, the ex-Capitol Police Chief says that they've requested the National Guard 6 times and it was denied. So let's look into this. So there was only 300 National Guard there for January 6th. And I love this here. There was an estimated 8,000 rioters. So it's okay to call these people rioters who stormed the Capitol non-violently, by the way, which is so funny. But you can't call the LA rioters, you call them protesters when they were actually like, some of them had guns and like were shooting. They were throwing rocks, throwing explosives, throwing Molotov cocktails at like federal agents and police. But you're not going to call them rioters, but you'll call the January 6thers rioters. That's always funny. They requested the National Guard like 3 times before J6 and then 3 times during J6. It just took forever for that request to actually get accepted. After they requested the National Guard on J6, it took more than 3 hours before troops arrived, which is like too long. But either way, the Capitol Police Chief, even before J6, said, hey, National Guard, we want some people. But that request got denied, and they have a quote here of why it got denied. The senior Army official said, I don't like the visual of the National Guard standing a police line with the Capitol in the background. So it was denied because he didn't want the National Guard to be seen as controversial, when in reality, it looks like they were needed, and he let basically his opinion get in the way of like public safety, I guess. He didn't like the visual of sending the National Guard, whether it was needed or not. His reason was he didn't like the visual of it. Next up, oh, this is just a little fun one. So you search, no King's Day rioters breach Capitol in DC. So this is a thing that happened, even though the mainstream media isn't really calling them rioters, and they're not saying that they breached the Capitol. So you search that. AI Overview is quick to say there's no records of no King's Day rioters breaching the Capitol. And then it says you may be confusing that with J6. So I just wanted to go here to this video. So this is from the No King's Day protest. And I just want to show you like kind of what happened that day that the media, I'm sure, hasn't shown you.
We got people breaking through the barriers of the Capitol building. We got people breaking through the barriers of the Capitol building.
And we were talking about this earlier. So just because they didn't enter the building doesn't mean they didn't breach, because that barrier it's a restricted area. You're not supposed to be there. That's why it's barricaded. And just in case you're confusing these people with January 6 rioters, no, this is no King's Day rioters. This is the other side politically. Just want you to be aware of that.
There's people that are breaking through the barriers of the Capitol building, rushing the Capitol steps. We got people rushing the Capitol steps right now. Capitol Police are responding to the break. Capitol Police are responding to those who...
So yeah, I just wanted to give an example of that. We see AI telling us that the No King's Day rioters didn't breach the Capitol in DC. We do have a video of it happening, but I'm sure no one's ever heard of it. And just to clarify one more time, this is not January 6th. This is No King's Day. Here's just another example. Is this J6 here? Trans activist staged bathroom sit-in at Capitol Hill. If these people were on the right, I'm sure mainstream media would claim that these are insurrectionists here. But no, these are just protesters. We got a fun one here. 200 people protesting Gaza war arrested in congressional building, police say. So again, we got 200 protesters, but the January 6th insurrectionists are rioters, even though these people got arrested and they did storm the Capitol building. And the title is so biased as to go in congressional building, implying that it's like maybe a state congressional building. But no, it's the DC Capitol building. They stormed it, but they're not called insurrectionists. But they should be. If you look at the other side politically, they're going to call the J6ers insurrectionists and rioters, but here they're just going to call them protesters, even though they're doing the same thing. I don't know if you heard about this, but Portland rioters breached an ICE facility and injured 4 officers. Is this January 6th? What is this? I mean, what are we calling this? This is that politician that assaulted a federal agent trying to break into an ICE facility. I don't know if you remember this. Representative LaMonica McIver, I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, you see her shoving a federal agent. She's trying to break into a federal building. Is this January 6th? Or what do we call this? What the fuck is this? I don't know if you heard about this. 11 rioters were arrested in Chicago outside the ICE detention center. They were armed, and it looks like they were trying to either kill some federal agents or break into the building. Is this an insurrection? What is this? I don't know if you remember this, the 10 people that got charged for showing up to like an ICE facility with guns and like explosives. What is this? Is this a protest? What the fuck is this? Are we going to call this an insurrection? Next up, I want to talk about the preemptive pardons. So before Biden left office, he preemptively pardoned all the members of the January 6th panel. So it was like the J6 committee. They were the people that did like the congressional investigation into January 6th. And they must have done something wrong because, first of all, if it's a real and legitimate investigation, there's no reason to pardon them. They were most likely pardoned because they fucked up the investigation to make it look like January 6th was full of insurrectionists and to make it look bad for Trump so he wouldn't get reelected. So when Trump did get reelected before Biden left the White House, he preemptively pardoned them. And I just want to go into the precedent for preemptive pardons. We have some examples of other presidents doing preemptive pardons. It has happened before, but never with a panel like the January 6th panel. So we have George Washington preemptively pardoning participants in the Whiskey Rebellion. We have Andrew Johnson issuing amnesty to all former Confederate soldiers. So that's like during the Civil War, he gives amnesty to all the people like on the Confederate side. So it's like for Biden to have a similar preemptive pardon to Andrew Johnson, he shouldn't be pardoning the January 6th panel. He should be pardoning the January 6th protesters who most likely were pushed to storm the Capitol by like undercover agents or informants. And then the mainstream media was against them since even before January 6th happened, basically because they're Trump supporters. So like a good similar move that Biden could have done is pardon the protesters like Trump did. We have Jimmy Carter pardoning Vietnam War era draft dodgers, but then we have Biden pardoning the January 6th panel, which should have done an open and honest and lawful investigation. Why would you need to pardon someone that does that? We have Gerald Ford preemptively pardoning former President Richard Nixon. So that would be like Trump was under all those investigations after his first term, or all those lawsuits after his first term. And so a similar pardon that Biden could have made is he could have pardoned Trump. But no, we don't see a similar kind of action with Biden. His preemptive pardon was covering his own ass. I believe he also pardoned Hunter Biden. He did Fossey, Millet, and members of the January 6th panel. And then if you want to look at, or if you just really quickly want to talk about the deaths, we do see one of these January 6th protesters getting shot by the Secret Service and dying. So you want to talk about violence from the right. There is no case for violence from the right here. They stormed the Capitol peacefully, unlike what we're seeing with leftist protesters nowadays. They're using violence. They're throwing Molotov cocktails. They're shooting fireworks. They're throwing rocks and shit. They're being completely violent. A lot of them are making death threats. But the J6 protesters were nonviolent, and they ended up actually getting shot. Meanwhile, we have ICE facilities getting shot up, but still the mainstream media not even able to call them really rioters, when in reality they should be going a step further and saying even insurrectionists like the people on J6. Anyway, I hope this video got the message across. I feel like it was pretty easy to follow. The only real new information is that there were 274 FBI agents at J6. Hopefully new information comes out as to exactly what they were doing, who they were, and what role that they played in the event. So keep an eye on the channel. I mean, there's always new stuff developing. This is a great time to be covering current events right now. I mean, we're seeing just culturally like a return to real controversial opinions, which is nice. We're seeing hot takes that are allowed to be hot again. You're actually allowed to say like fun stuff. And if you talk about COVID, you won't get demonetized on YouTube. This video, I'm sure, will have a little information box below it that clarifies exactly what J6 was. But, you know, look into all these sources you want. If you want to double check them, look into other sources to, you know, look into it yourself and you can make a decision. It's very fair to say that there were undercover agents or informants that were inciting protesters to turn into riots, to turn into what the mainstream media would call an insurrection. Specifically so they could use it as a shit story against Trump. But again, make your own decision. Definitely check out the channel and subscribe so you can check out other videos. and have a good night.